Dawn breaks. The world outside is completely silent. For just a few seconds, absolute stillness. Then your alarm blares, shattering the quiet. Look, in that tiny gap between dreaming and waking, you and I are holding something powerful. Raw potential. A fresh 24 hours untouched by fear, bad habits, or digital noise. Most folks crush this moment instantly. They grab their phones, doom scroll the morning news, and within 5 minutes their headspace is jammed with cheap comparisons and toxic anxiety. The day owns them before their feet hit the floor. As philosophy practitioners, we refuse this. I often turn to Marcus Aurelius. When the blankets feel too warm, I remind myself I am rising to do the work of a human being, not to chase comfort, but purpose. Because those first few waking moments dictate something incredibly powerful. Your mind becomes your sharpest tool, or your darkest cage. That choice starts the second your eyes snap open. Every single sunrise hands you absolute gold. 24 untouched hours nobody else can spend for you. They are yours. Yet most squander it. They wake up frantic, fretting over future phantoms and reacting to imaginary crises. The ancient Stoics warned us against this trap. We believe your morning routine shapes your entire existence. Aurelius taught that every single day is a whole life mapped in miniature. You are not grinding through some endless, repeating loop. You are stepping into a finite, irreplaceable chunk of your own mortality. Eventually, this chance will vanish forever. We call this Stoic practice, memento mori. Remember, you must die. I do not use this to create panic. It exists to wake us up. Knowing the clock is ticking forces you to respect today. You stop acting like tomorrow is guaranteed. You quit delaying the hard, necessary work. You stop sleepwalking through the morning like it has zero value. Taking charge of your time requires one brutal choice. Instead of letting Monday simply happen to you, you reach out and claim it. I tell myself daily, this time is mine, and I refuse to sleepwalk through it. That is not ego. That is personal responsibility. The masses ride through life in the passenger seat, constantly reacting to bad moods, noisy coworkers, and cheap distractions. True Stoic freedom lies purely in choosing our response. Epictetus taught a strict divide between what we control and what we simply cannot. The rain is not your problem. Other people's opinions are not your problem. The history books are already written. Look, let's process this together. Your focus, your mindset, your actions, those are yours to command. Claiming your morning means seizing that sheer power. Discipline is not just about scheduling. It is mental. I read Aurelius often to remember that life's joy relies entirely on the quality of my thoughts. Not a paycheck, not status, not applause. Your internal dialogue grinds the lens through which you see reality. And those first mental sparks at dawn carry the heaviest weight. When my brain immediately whines that today will be a brutal grind, it starts hunting for proof to validate that misery. The whole day gets painted black before I even brush my teeth. But if I consciously remind myself I hold the power to act with iron calm, tough discipline, and clear purpose, everything shifts immediately. The exact same hurdles strike, but my logic holds firm. Honestly, most folks never interrogate their own internal monologue. They treat every emotional impulse like holy law. We understand that thoughts are often just cheap passing ghosts. Fear is just a mental echo. Doubt and worry are exactly the same. A thought knocking on the door does not earn my trust. Epictetus commanded us to freeze and strictly interrogate every single impression. I ask myself, is this useful? Is it factual? Does this deserve my energy? That simple filter builds the foundation of unbreakable mental toughness. Instead of getting chained to panic, you watch your brain with cold detachment. Practicing this at sunrise is vital. Your mind is still quiet enough to consciously mold. If I start my morning feeding my brain with digital trash, to outrage news and fake online flexing, my mind fractures long before it can even build a solid foundation. But anchoring myself with deliberate, stoic awareness sets a firm compass heading before society attacks my energy. One sharp philosophy can steer a whole Tuesday. I literally tell myself, today I choose patience. Today I stay locked in. Today I tackle the heavy lifting instead of chasing the cheap dopamine. Seize your schedule, brutally filter your thoughts, and a subtle shift happens. You quit playing the victim of your own biography. You step up as the active author of every single moment. Setbacks still crash in. Toxic people still bark. Unplanned chaos happens, but my mind refuses to shatter at the first sign of friction. You realize real peace never meant dominating the globe. It means mastering your internal reactions. Every single dawn hands you this exact Stoic test. A blank 24 hours begging for deliberate action. The mental framework you construct in those first waking minutes silently commands everything that happens next. The absolute heaviest baggage people drag out of bed is yesterday. The failures, the embarrassing stumbles, the blown chances. Instead of grabbing the fresh start, they boot up the mind to endlessly replay stale, useless memories. They endlessly autopsy what they should have done. You and I must realize this. While obsessing over ghosts, the actual present bleeds out. As philosophy practitioners, we spot this flaw instantly. We know the human brain loves gripping things that are permanently dead. Aurelius hammered one brutal truth into his own skull. The past is untouchable. Zero amount of whining rewrites history. No amount of fury will ever erase it. Let's start our practice today with a hard truth. No amount of wishing changes a single second. Once we grasp this, carrying yesterday like a heavy weight feels entirely pointless. That does not mean our past has no value. As practitioners, we don't ignore mistakes. In fact, the early Stoics practiced serious reflection every single evening. I do the same. I examine my actions, review my choices, and ask exactly what I can improve. But my philosophy teaches a strict line between learning from the past and being trapped by it. Learning brings wisdom. Dwelling simply brings suffering. When my mind loops the same regrets, I know I am no longer seeking improvement. I am just punishing myself. And punishment never produces real growth. True growth requires clarity. I have to look at what happened, understand my mistake, and move forward without dragging those heavy emotional chains along. Epictetus taught me something vital. We are never disturbed by events, but by the strict judgments we place upon them. The event is over, but the story I keep telling myself keeps the pain breathing. Maybe I messed up yesterday. Maybe I let someone down or failed a major task. Those failures happened, but they lack the authority to define who I am today. The second I wake up, I am standing in an entirely new moment of time. And this present moment has no obligation to repeat the past, unless I choose to drag it with me. Dropping yesterday is not a sign of weakness. It is pure discipline. As a practitioner, it demands courage to drop the illusion that I can control what is already finished. It takes humility to accept that being human means messing up and adjusting. The ancient Stoics saw every single day as a fresh chance to practice virtue. No matter how badly yesterday crashed, today invites me to act with patience, honesty, courage, and wisdom. The past cannot block that effort unless I let it rule my mind. But releasing yesterday is just phase one of the practice. The second step is taking command of my mind before the outside world steals it from me. I see people wake up and instantly surrender their focus. The phone lights up with a dozen alerts. Messages flood in. Angry news headlines beg for emotional reactions. Within minutes, my mind is pulled apart. Anxiety spikes. The mental comparison begins before I even get out of bed. My focus is already shattered. This is exactly the trap the Stoics warned about. They understood attention is one of the most precious resources I possess. Wherever my focus goes, my energy is forced to follow. When I start my morning by guarding my attention, I begin the hard work of mastering myself. Instead of blindly reacting to the chaos, I force total stillness. I breathe. I watch the thoughts surface. I remind myself daily that not every thought earns my belief, and not every sudden impulse deserves my blind obedience. This is the strict discipline of awareness, a core Stoic practice. They knew the human mind generates a non-stop flood of impressions from dawn to dusk. Some are helpful, but many are lies. In my experience, the difference between a disciplined mind and a distracted one is simply pausing before believing them. Morning is the ideal time for me to practice this control. The mind is still quiet enough to be properly steered. When I sit with my thoughts for even a brief minute, I always recognize something profound. I am not that loud, anxious voice inside my head. I am simply the one observing it. Fear shows up as a thought, doubt creeps in, but those feelings are just temporary guests, not the rulers of my life. The moment I spot that difference, I start to take back total authority over my inner world. Every single dawn invites me to drop what is done and command what is here. Yesterday is dead. Tomorrow is out of my hands. But this breath, this awareness, is entirely mine. And when I stop dragging the heavy weight of the past into today, I finally create some room to breathe. Once I drop yesterday and force my focus into the present, a major shift happens. I can attack the day with fierce intention instead of weak hesitation. Let's look at this together. How we handle our first waking minutes builds a force that impacts every hour after. Think about the basic physics concept of momentum. An object moving in a solid direction tends to stay on that path. As a practitioner, I see that exact same rule shaping human habits. If my morning starts with scrolling and delay, the whole day turns into a scattered mess. But if I start with sharp clarity and action, my mind locks into a forward drive. The Stoic masters practiced this centuries before modern psychology even had a name for it. They knew those first morning actions could never be random. They must be intentional. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal that when his body fought leaving the warm bed, it was not an excuse to hide. It was a strict call to duty. I remind myself often, a human being is not built to chase cheap comfort. We are built to execute our purpose. It sounds basic, but applying this shifts my entire morning. Instead of checking how tired I feel when the alarm hits, I ask what kind of person I demand to be today. Feelings are fleeting and unreliable. Purpose is a hard choice. If I let a craving for comfort dictate my morning, the whole day slips through my fingers. But when I act on purpose, the day launches with power. Starting strong does not require a massive, dramatic routine. It just requires meaningful steps. 10 minutes of deep reading sharpens my focus. A quick, hard workout wakes up the blood. Writing down one clear goal locks in my attention. Even the simple, brutal act of standing up the second my alarm rings is a critical victory for my discipline. These tiny wins send a direct signal to my brain. They prove that I am a person who moves the exact moment it is time to move. someone who chooses hard effort over easy delay, someone who actually honors the start of a new day. But a strong launch is only half the battle. Plenty of people start hot, only to completely burn out before noon. My Stoic guides were never impressed by bursts of hype. They respected iron endurance. Character isn't shown in the initial thrill of starting, but in the gritty choice to keep pushing when the hype dies. When motivation vanishes, raw discipline keeps my mind steady. You and I must make that quiet choice together. Keep doing what matters, especially when the daily practice gets hard. Let's look at this together. In my practice, I follow Seneca's rule. Real progress comes from daily reps, not overnight miracles. One disciplined morning choice is great, but repeating that choice hour after hour, that is how you forge true strength. Pushing forward when your day gets chaotic or exhausting trains your brain to stay completely grounded when the pressure hits. Every single task you finish hardwires a deep belief into your core. You prove you can actually rely on your own grit. Finishing what you start holds immense power. Leave things half done, and your brain quickly chokes on the clutter of unfinished business. Your energy drains out through scattered focus and lingering chores. But when you actually finish the goals you set, everything shifts. Your head clears out. A quiet sense of order and deep respect for yourself starts to take root. In my own study, Marcus Aurelius stands out. He told himself to lock onto the task right in front of him with pure focus. That exact mindset turns plain chores into fierce discipline. I view my day as a house built by my own actions. The morning pours the concrete foundation. The following hours stack the walls. Your evening drops the roof on top. Pour a weak foundation, and the house shakes. Fill your afternoon with cheap distractions, and the whole frame threatens to snap. But kick things off with power and hold that steady discipline, and your entire day stands rock solid. As Stoics, we do not track success through flashy wins or crowd applause. We measure it by staying dead loyal to the actions we know are right. You forge that kind of power quietly, through daily reps. Every single time you wake up with purpose, you spark massive momentum. Every time you grind through with patience, you feed that fire. And when you finally cross the finish line, you cement ironclad trust in yourself. Living your day this way gives you way more than just results. It hammers your character into shape. The constant habit of starting hard, holding the line, and finishing strong rewires your identity. You stop seeing discipline as some awful chore forced on you. Instead, you realize it is your ultimate anchor, a steady engine that drives you forward with clear purpose, cutting right through the daily noise. And that all kicks off the second your alarm rings and you choose purpose. Because the stealthiest killer of a good life is simply putting things off. Procrastination never shows up as some loud, obvious villain. It never screams at you. It just whispers something soft, easy, and comfortable. Just do it later. You have plenty of time. Wait until you feel completely ready. In the moment, those lies sound perfectly harmless. Stick with me here. We need to recognize this trap. Over time, those excuses quietly rob you of days, months, and entire years. In Stoic practice, waiting around for the perfect moment is the deadliest mental habit you can build. Marcus Aurelius constantly warned himself to stop debating what makes a good person. He told himself to just go be one. That hits like a freight train. You do not build a solid life by sitting around making endless plans. You build it by acting. Most folks think they need the perfect mood to start doing hard work. They wait for a magic spark of motivation to push them, but reality operates in total reverse. Action sparks motivation. Moving your feet brings clarity. Sit around worrying about every single bad outcome, and your brain just locks up in total paralysis. Doubt breeds. Fear sinks its teeth in. The job starts feeling like a mountain. But the exact second you take one step, the dynamic shifts. Your brain snaps from fantasy into reality. Your blood starts flowing. That terrifying obstacle suddenly looks like something you can actually handle. Seneca warned that while we sit around stalling, life speeds right past us. It sounds basic, but it exposes the harsh truth about time. Today moves forward whether you move or not. Every single hour vanishes, whether you cash it in or waste it. Waiting around never protects your future. It just slowly kills the opportunities sitting right in front of you. In my practice, the present second is the only ground where real action happens. The past is dead and gone, and tomorrow is a total gamble. But right now is breathing and alive. Striking while the iron is hot shapes the only slice of time you actually own and control. The morning gives us the ultimate testing ground for this mindset. The second your eyes open, you are staring down a brand new runway of time. Hesitate too long, and your brain instantly starts negotiating with weakness. It begs you to scroll your phone. It pleads for just 5 more minutes of sleep. It whispers to wait until you feel sharper. Giving in to that bargaining bleeds your willpower completely dry. But taking immediate action shatters that toxic loop. Throwing off the blankets at the buzzer is not just stretching your legs. It is a cold, hard declaration that your own rules outrank your lazy excuses. We believe in tackling tiny actions first, because tiny actions demolish the wall of fear. When a job looks impossible, chop it down into one simple step. Type one single sentence instead of a whole chapter. Do 10 push-ups instead of dreading a brutal hour at the gym. Read just one paragraph, rather than mapping out an epic study session. These micro steps force momentum, and momentum is gold. Once your brain starts running, it naturally wants to keep going. The engine revs up the second you trade hesitation for execution. And here is the real secret. Acting fast, violently, rebuilds the trust you have in yourself. Every single time you promise to do the work and then hit snooze, your subconscious learns that your word is absolute garbage. That habit bleeds your confidence dry right under your nose. But when you pull the trigger the moment you decide, everything changes. You prove to yourself that your commands actually mean something. Day by day, this forges an unbreakable core of self-reliance. You finally know, deep down, you will actually do what you say. Epictetus taught us that true greatness never strikes like lightning. It is built through daily grit and totally relentless discipline. Moving fast does not mean sprinting through life or burning yourself out. It simply means flat-out refusing to let fear or laziness block the work that matters. You and I know courage is not erasing hesitation. It is marching forward while that hesitation still screams. I've found that acting without delay each morning fundamentally changes you. Decisions get sharper. Your energy simply builds up. Your mind stops hunting for excuses and starts craving results. You finally feel the deep satisfaction of forward movement, leaving behind the heavy frustration of endless waiting. Over time, this daily habit of immediate action rewires how you handle every single part of your life. We Stoics know that life is built one decision at a time. Every moment offers a tiny window to step forward or stay stuck. Choose action, and you align with real progress. Choose delay, and you slowly drift away from your own potential. The split between these two paths almost always starts with something incredibly small. Just the willingness to act, right now, rather than waiting for a perfect moment that never comes. But once we master acting quickly, a new challenge pops up. The modern world constantly drags our attention in 50 directions at once. Messages pop up. Group chats light up. Fresh data fights for your focus every single minute. It gets so easy to start a dozen projects, but nearly impossible to finish one with actual depth. This scattered routine slowly bleeds your energy dry. The old philosophers understood that attention is the most valuable currency you and I possess. Where your focus goes, your life immediately follows. When you chop your attention into 100 pieces, your mind just ends up restless and burned out. But point that attention at one clear task, and the game changes. Your energy pools together instead of leaking out. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to lock in on what sat directly in front of him. Forget the dead past. Ignore the unborn future. Just crush the present task. That idea sounds basic, but it packs incredible power. When you completely zero in on one meaningful action, your brain finally finds real clarity. The static of pointless worry just fades out. Your thoughts steady themselves, and your output gets stronger. Too many people think they need to feel hyped up to focus. As a practitioner, I know it works backward. Focus actually creates the energy. When you lock in, your mind wakes up and finds its purpose. That is exactly why hitting one core task first thing in the morning completely shifts the trajectory of your entire day. Instead of throwing your effort at a dozen cheap distractions, you pick one action that moves the needle. Maybe it is writing, studying, planning, or cracking a tough problem. Give that single task your undivided attention, and you manufacture serious progress. That forward motion fuels your drive and hardens your daily discipline. Tasks that felt heavy suddenly get lighter because your brain stops fighting through the fog. It knows exactly where to aim its fire. In our practice, we learn that true strength never comes from random spikes of massive achievement. Real strength grows from stacking tiny victories. Epictetus taught that mental toughness comes from small habits practiced without fail. Every time you knock out a small task that matches your principles, you harden your character. Standing up when that alarm rings is a massive win. Picking deep work over cheap dopamine is a win. Finishing that thing you swore you would get done is another major victory. These moments look tiny on their own, but stacked up, they build the concrete foundation of a disciplined mind. View these wins as hard evidence you hand yourself. Proof that you are a person who actually follows through. Proof that your choices have weight, not just empty wishes. Every time you honor a small commitment to yourself, your inner confidence quietly hardens. This confidence beats loud motivation every time. It never needs hype or outside applause. It stems from cold, hard proof that you can trust your own two hands. Over time, those tiny actions snowball into an unstoppable force. Marcus Aurelius actively trained this exact mindset. Running a massive empire, he still reminded himself every day to stick to basic virtues, stay patient, keep his discipline, and do the work without complaining. He knew the truth. Greatness never comes from shouting your big plans. It gets built through boring, ordinary actions done with total consistency. You and I know every single day hands us a chance to practice these quiet forms of excellence. Mix razor-sharp focus with a daily streak of small wins, and something incredible kicks in. Your mind goes quiet because it stops drowning in endless options. Your personal energy spikes because you are aiming it like a laser, not spraying it around. Your discipline feels automatic because one win locks in the next. A single focused hit triggers another, then another. Before you know it, the the whole day is stacked with progress. Most folks ignore the raw power of these small daily habits because they happen in silence. They just are not flashy enough. No one claps for them. But in our philosophy, true character gets forged inside exactly those quiet, lonely moments. Every choice to focus, every promise honored, every tiny task checked off lays another brick in your foundation. Give it time, and this pile of small wins completely changes the person looking back in the mirror. You drop the idea that mental toughness is some harsh restriction. Instead, you see it for what it is, an unshakable source of personal power. It proves that real growth does not come from random flashes of motivation, but from the grinding practice of aiming your focus and keeping your word, one step at a time. People completely misunderstand the true meaning of discipline. They picture it as something heavy and restricting, a brutal system that strips all the joy out of living. To them, it feels like a prison cell made of strict rules. But as practitioners, we look at it through a completely different lens. We know discipline is never a cage. It is your only real ticket to freedom. Without it, your brain just becomes a slave to cheap impulses, random moods, and screens. A guy wakes up and blindly chases whatever feeling hits him first. Body feels tired? They hide under the covers. Mind wants easy comfort? They dodge the hard work. Phone screen flashes? They stare at it like zombies. Living like that means impulse steers the ship, and impulse is dangerously unstable. Epictetus nailed it when he warned that no man is truly free unless he masters his own mind. That truth sits at the very core of our practice. Real freedom is never just doing whatever you feel like doing exactly when you want to. That sort of freedom? Just chaos dressed up as independence. True freedom means choosing the right path, even when a shortcut sits right in front of you. It means letting your core values drive your actions, rather than your passing moods. Daily discipline is the only way to make that happen. Discipline keeps you anchored when emotions swing wild, and comfort tries pulling you off course. Let's look together at what actually happens when someone abandons that daily structure. Outside forces hijack their entire day. A phone pings during deep work, and their focus shatters instantly. They push hard tasks away until the stress becomes crushing. One minor setback hits, and their entire mood crashes for the rest of the afternoon. People in this state think they are completely free, but really, they just react to whatever gets thrown at them. Random circumstances control their mind, leaving zero room for clear intention. Real discipline flips that script entirely. Starting your morning with focused action sends an absolute command straight to your own brain. You remind yourself that your deliberate choices carry more weight than fleeting urges. Dragging yourself out of bed when the blankets feel warm? That is a quiet act of self-mastery. Knocking out a vital task before the noise starts is another vital win. Every single victory tightens the grip on your own habits. Bit by bit, your mind realizes it no longer has to serve every random craving. Seneca taught us that true power belongs to the person who rules themselves. You do not need to dominate others or control random life events to build this unbreakable strength. It simply comes from steering your own steps with sharp consistency. Once you anchor this practice into your daily routine, a very strange shift occurs. Life suddenly feels incredibly light. That exhausting mental tug-of-war just fades away. You stop wasting precious hours bargaining with yourself about doing the work. The choice is already locked in. You just walk the path you set. That is exactly why owning your morning builds total freedom for the rest of your day. Tackling the brutal work right away lifts the heavy burden of undone tasks straight off your shoulders. Rather than dragging stress into every single hour, you walk through the afternoon with total calm. You already know the heaviest lifting is done and dusted. That mental empty space breeds sharp focus and deep peace. And the best hidden reward of this practice? The unbreakable self-belief it forges over time. Every single time you honor a promise you made to yourself, you forge absolute trust in your own core character. You start looking in the mirror and seeing a reliable human, someone acting with purpose instead of freezing up. That breed of confidence stands firm because it runs on raw action, not cheap talk. It never relies on outside applause or a fleeting rush of motivation to survive. As practitioners, we know discipline forms the bridge connecting the life you dream about to reality. Having great ideas will never be enough to build a meaningful existence. Sketching out plans builds zero character. Your life is forged by choosing your values over and over again, especially when the work gets painful. Every sunrise hands you a fresh chance to make that hard choice. Stick with me here, because over time you will notice a profound mental shift. Your brain quiets down because cheap impulses stop running the show. Your physical body hardens because you stop running away from demanding effort. And your core spirit grows fiercely confident, simply because it finally learned how to trust its own strength. The daily work stops feeling like a heavy burden and becomes pure liberation. It turns into an unstoppable engine, driving you forward with total purpose and inner freedom. At the very center of Stoic thought sits one brutally simple, undeniable truth. Nobody is coming to save you or map out your day. No one else gets to dictate how you think, how you react, or how you spend the hours on your clock. The weight of this day rests squarely on your own shoulders. Most folks drift through their years like passive tourists, letting random events dictate their fate. A little rain ruins their whole morning. One harsh comment, and their fragile mood instantly shatters. One unexpected hurdle sparks total mental panic. Living like this leaves you feeling like a victim of life, rather than the architect building your own path. As students of this philosophy, we reject that weak mindset entirely. The outside world is pure chaos, but your internal reaction remains yours to control. Marcus Aurelius constantly told himself that an honorable life requires almost nothing. The true secret is never avoiding hard times, but choosing to face them with a ruthlessly disciplined mind. You have zero say over sudden roadblocks, frustrating delays, or toxic people. But you hold absolute power over how you face the fire. You can weaponize patience over anger. You can deploy calm focus instead of blind panic. You can demand hard work rather than cheap escapes. These tiny pivots seem invisible now, but they steer your entire destiny. Each time your eyes open, you face a choice. The first route is pure reaction. Down that road, you hand the keys to the universe, letting it dictate your mood, your drive, and your focus. You bounce between crises with zero strategy. One tiny glitch dictates how you feel. A flashy distraction pops up and it steals your focus entirely. Your day degrades into endless flinching rather than active living. The second road, however, demands raw intention. Walking this line, you choose exactly who you are before stepping out the door. You lock in your mindset early. Instead of passively waiting to see what life throws at you, you forge your character to handle absolute chaos. The ancient practitioners mastered this simply by visualizing the exact traps they were about to walk into. The emperor wrote that every sunrise, he fully expected to clash with folks who were selfish, ungrateful, completely arrogant, and dishonest. He never did this to drag his mood down. He did it to build mental armor. By predicting the friction, he completely killed the element of surprise. When the drama actually hit, he met it with cold logic instead of explosive rage. That mental prep kept him totally in the driver's seat. Before we wrap up, you and I need to recognize that true purpose is only forged through daily, brutal action. A day has zero value just because you survived it. Passing time alone will never build a truly meaningful life. As a practitioner, I find meaning in exactly how I fill my time. When I act with real purpose, even simple tasks hold weight. Working with sharp focus becomes my daily discipline. Speaking kindly turns into a test of character. Meeting hard times with patience becomes my personal proof of strength. In my Stoic practice, daily virtue is what turns flat hours into a life worth living. You and I both know there are always moments that completely test our deepest intentions. Plans completely fall apart. A simple chat turns hostile. Heavy exhaustion hits when I still have plenty of work left to finish. It is dangerously easy to just react blindly right then. But my philosophy training forces me to pause, breathe, and pull back into awareness. I stop whining about why things happen to me. The real question is, what will I do right now? Every single roadblock is a chance to train my patience, focus, and grit. The second I accepted that I actually author my own day, my entire perspective completely shifted. I quit waiting around for perfect conditions to act. I stopped blaming bad luck for my own stalled progress. Now, I only focus on what I actually control. My choices, my sheer effort, my attitude. These tools stay firmly in my grip no matter what kind of chaos the world throws. Over time, my practice created a deep sense of inner stability. The world keeps spinning and new crises hit, but my reactions remain steady, calm, and completely on purpose. Every single morning is my invitation to practice this responsibility. It reminds me that my daily direction is never written in stone. I forge it, moment by moment, through the exact choices I make. When I wake up with this mindset, I stop drifting blindly through time. I start moving with actual deliberate purpose. You and I both know the power to shape life starts the second we open our eyes. We choose exactly how we will command the hours ahead.